Oh my god, how did I not know this? This is how they do it. John Summit, Dom Dolla, Odd Mob, all those guys. Their bass lines, the movement is just better. Open up your bass in Serum. You have the cutoff here, have that hooked up to the filter. Click it a few times, because then you can automate it. Look what I did. It's all random, but listen. With it off, look, I'm gonna turn this off. Now the macro is at 0. I'm gonna turn off this delay I have as well. No automation now. That sucks. Turn on the automation, parallel, erosion, double erosion. Be random, it works. If you make music, you need to know about this way to make your drums sound way louder without ruining your mix. Actually, you're gonna save headroom so you can push your master limiter even harder at the end. John Summit tweeted about this, so you don't even have to believe me, but check this out. Throw a decapitator onto your main drum group, all of it together. We're gonna load up this preset drum fattener, adjust the drive to about 4.2. Fun fact with all the Sound Toys plugins, just click on whatever description of the knob and it'll show you a precise number. Like, check that out. We have the output set to auto, but we brought it down a little bit more to -5.1 and the mix over to about 45%. After that, we're going to load up a drum bus with these settings. Make sure to bring the damp up a little bit to 14 kilohertz. The transient's about 0.4, and this is a very powerful plugin to bring the dry wet down a lot. Now the drum bus is going to add volume and peaks transients, so we're going to need to clip that off. I'm using this plugin K-Clip 3. There's a free version also, it just doesn't have all the algorithms of the paid one, which is fine. We have the threshold down about 6 decibels, clipping almost 3. See, I'm using the output on the clipper to bring the volume back up to where it started at before I did all the processing. With it off, you can see the peaks. With it on, you can see the thickness. The best producers are doing this, something in their arrangement that gives their songs more life, more danceability, more interest. My name's Chaco. I've been releasing music for 5 years now. I have 3 unique things here to add to your production. The first thing you can do is cut the hi-hats all from the 4th beat of a phrase and just let the clap and a reverse cymbal swing back into the phrase. It's turning. Utilize double kicks. Guys like James Hype, Disclosure, they're doing this often. Make sure to turn the kick down and maybe pitch it up a few. It's turning. And this may seem simple, but make sure to cut the low end from your kicks at the end of phrases. Give your listeners a chance to know there's a change coming. Oh my god, how did I not know this? Chris Lake, Dom Dolla, Chris Lake. I've been doing this snare roll trick in almost every build-up lately, and it just works. Check this out. All I did was follow the vocal rhythm. Every syllable is going to get a hit, either a snare or a percussion, whatever I'm feeling. You can always add a couple extra for that flair. It feels detailed, but it is super simple. Select a couple of the notes, hit 0 to cancel them out. And you add those little flare shots at the end. Without it, it's just basic and boring. Keep it simple, be intentional. If you make house or techno music and you've struggled to get your bass line sounding right, I want to show you some tips that really took my production to the next level. Layering my rolling bass lines have done so much for how it sounds. So this is the way your bass line can sound so much fuller and tighter, stand out in the mix all at once. This is what our main bass line looks like. We have our sub-octave layer here, which is just some square, and then we have a sawtooth that's widened 1 octave above. Now what's key here is the envelope, and every track will be different, but I want you to really pay attention to where you choose to put the ADSR. This determines the volume and how plucky your bass line sounds. I want you to have the second envelope very short and route that through the cutoff. Adjust it as you like. Now for the layers, I like to usually add some sort of mid knock and then a weird tonal thing higher up. We just copied the MIDI from the last channel, and all it is, we chose a waveform and a very short envelope. We added a Haas delay and some OTT. And on our mid layer, we just added this different monster wave, 1 octave lower. Same idea, very tight envelope. That's getting routed to this. And we have a tiny bit of reverb hanging onto it. Altogether, you get a really full bass line. If your sub bass isn't hitting right, here are a few things you can do to make your track sound a little more professional. The last one I've only started doing recently, it's helped out so much. And we're talking about those really simple offbeat bass lines that Odd Mob and Max Styler get so perfect. We're gonna get 2 very simple wavetables. Basic first envelope, a little bit of attack. Second envelope, short. We're routing this to the cutoff. That will give it a little bit of that bounce we need. No processing here. Now the first thing I did was this reductive EQ. All I'm doing is removing a little bit of space, which is making space for this sound. Next, we're adding some clean saturation with Saturn. I'm using this clean tube preset. What I like to do is up the drive until it's really noticeable and then cut it back in half. That's usually where I keep it. Remember, sub bass is usually felt, not heard. And the extra sauce we're getting is this erosion, but the most important thing we're doing is we're cutting off these notes before the next hit. That is so key because it makes sure your sub doesn't bleed into the kick drum. Let me know what you think. It took me years to learn about this, but if you make music in Ableton, this is going to save you loads of time. We've all worked on projects for hours and then thought by the end of it, my drums suck, or my bass line's not working. I wish my kick was as good as the last one, and we can solve that super easily. So on the left side of Ableton, you have this whole user library where you can add files. What you want to do is go to this add folder and find the folder where you store all your projects. Select this folder. Now I have this file linked right down here. Now what I can do is go through any of these files, go into my project. I can click on this kick here and I can pull one of these onto my new project. Click and hold, that'll show up and it'll drag in the whole track. You can even drag an entire drum group. Let me know if you'll try this, because if you make music, you need to know these two ways the best producers use to make their bass lines without any crazy processing. Dom Dolla and Odd Mob lately are using really simple offbeat bass lines. You may wonder why yours don't sound as good as theirs. Open up Serum and choose a plucky bass line with the envelope attached to the cutoff. I promise you the waveforms don't really matter. This is kind of like a square, rounded square triangle thing going on. Pick a sound you like, pitch it down a few octaves. But we're not specifically automating the cutoff length, we're automating the decay. How do I explain it simply? Every time that little ball goes down the ramp, it takes 294 milliseconds, right? 294 milliseconds is how long that's going to go up and down. When we automate the decay, it takes longer for the little dot to go down his ramp. So that means this is going to take longer to open and close. For this bass line, if we're not going to automate anything, it sounds quite boring. But we're going to automate the length of the little ramp that our little ball is going to go down. Okay, but wait, in this track I had an accent bass and I automated it the other way. So this envelope that's routing to this cutoff is getting automated by this macro to the cutoff, keeping it the same speed when you go down, giving yourself more high frequencies. And that's what this automation looks like. But will they work together?
Get really high.
Buildups are so important. Odd Mob is one of the best producers in the game, getting over 1 million streams on his one song, Being Dreamin', which uses this exact strategy. I put together this audio effect rack you can download for free. It's a rack for parallel echo and parallel reverb, short and long. Blue is the echo, green is the reverb long, and yellow is the short reverb. Automate the on and offs to any number, 1 to 127. It turns on the echo, and now we can start automating the echo amount. We also have the long reverb automated. You have the option to modulate the high pass filter. You also have the option, you can change the echo time. The long reverb here, 5 seconds. You can adjust this as much as you want. It goes down to 2.5 up to 12. Short reverb goes from 440 milliseconds up to 220. So I hope you find this tool useful, because everyone knows that your snare rolls are boring. Here's how to make them pop in under 60 seconds. Static snare rolls kill the energy of your track. No movement, no dynamics, no life, but it's an easy fix. Highlight the snare roll and tweak the velocities to create a natural human feel. A small change will add groove and energy, but velocity alone is not enough. You need movement, and that's where step 2 comes in, which is automate the panning. Add an auto pan plugin and draw in subtle increases with both amount and the rate. This will create a swirling effect that'll sound really good in headphones. So remember, velocity and panning makes for a dynamic snare roll. Try it in your next track so nobody's telling you. If you make house or techno in the 128 to 135 BPM range like John Summit or Dom Dolla, you know as well as they do that the subtleties in the drums are what can make a track stand out. And if your drums are locked in, everything else can just fall into place. Now I like to separate my drums into 2 groups, the main drums and the secondary drums, sometimes even a tertiary group. I have 2 hi-hats layered, 1 pan to the left, 1 pan to the right. 1 simple 909 clap. And we're supporting that with 2 16th hat rhythms, 1 more of a shaker, 1 more of a hard hat. Now just with the kick, bass, and the main drums, we already have something really solid we can use. Now the key is to add subtle support to give the groove a little more life. So I have this short clave rhythm that just repeats 2 bars over and over. I'm using auto pan, some distortion, and then the last bit is the short delay, along with an offbeat ride pattern and these swing snares, which really do the trick. Now you can use lead synths less and be more specific on automations with them. On the vocal, I'm using the transient warper on 1/16 beats to get that subtle stutter, and then some manual chops to be a little more creative than just using the vocal plain on its own.
I wanna feel your body, so let me